Good evening. Hope everyone's doing well this evening. I'm really excited about who I have joining me tonight. It is a doctor who I've looked up to actually for quite a long time. And I feel really lucky that Instagram's given me the ability to actually connect with her and get to know her. So we'll wait for her to join us. But for anyone who doesn't know who my guest is tonight, she's known on social media as Dr. Sammy. She is a frontline doctor, and she really has been someone who's sort of been the voice of a lot of frontline doctors during this pandemic, but also for a long time before then. So I'm really looking forward to having her join me and getting to know a little bit more about her story, and all the amazing things that she does. So we'll give her a few moments now. If you have any questions for us or for Sammy, feel free to pop them in the question box or leave a comment. We'll definitely try to get to them. And I'm just really excited to speak to her. Let's see. I don't think I have her just yet. Hi. Let me just double check. Nope, still waiting. So in the meantime, I guess a little bit about her, although we'll go into more detail later. I first got to know who she was because of her work with the DA UK, so the Doctors Association UK, where she has been amazing. Oh, I think we've got her, so I'm not gonna talk, I'm gonna let her talk. Let me just bring her into the conversation here. So bear with me here, technology's always a bit. Invited her, and we'll see if we can get her to join. Oh, there we go. Hello.
Hi.
Hi, it's working.
Yay.
That's always good.
I'm so sorry I'm late. I just had to kick my husband off the sofa and he was playing PlayStation, so I'm in the doghouse. But I won.
Good. I'm glad. And I'm so glad you're here with me.
Oh, it's nice to actually meet you, kind of.
I know, virtually anyway, because I feel like we've been chatting a lot on Instagram and just messaging. So it's nice to finally actually talk kind of face to face.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Of course. So look, let's just jump right into it. So could you really quickly introduce yourself to anyone who doesn't know who you are?
Yeah, sure. So hi, I'm Sammy. I'm still a junior doctor. After about 15 years after starting med school, I work in intensive care and I also work on the air ambulance, but mainly my job is as a mummy to our little 4-year-old Joshua. And yeah, that's me.
Brilliant. So I want to ask you, just going back to the beginning, what made you decide to go into medicine and become a doctor? And if you could do it all again, would you still go down the same path?
I don't really know what made me want to be a doctor. I used to want to be a vet, and I think in retrospect that definitely would have been the better choice. My parents tried to talk me out of med school because I love animals so much, but when I did work experience, I found it really sad, and yeah, I just couldn't cope with the animals being neglected and abandoned. I just wanted to take them all home. So yeah, I don't know why I thought humans would be easier, but yeah, here I am. I don't know, I don't know if I would have, I love my job, probably like you know, you have to love it. You have to be a bit bonkers and you have to love it. But
Yeah.
no, if I knew that I was still going to be here, still in training, still commuting, still doing exams in my 30s with a kid, I don't know, maybe I would have chosen differently. But then I have a really good day and I think actually our jobs are pretty awesome.
I think it's such a difficult thing because I can tell that you love your job. And I do love my job most days as well. But, you know, the thing that I love about you as well is that you are so honest about all the difficulties that are inherent in being a junior doctor in the NHS, particularly at this point in time. And I think I've heard you say that when you talk to medical students about the future and you give them advice, you kind of say you want them to walk into things with their eyes open. So yes, this can be the most brilliant career in the world, but it can also be one of the most difficult. And you should sort of know what you're getting yourself into, because I'll be honest, I don't think I knew what I was getting myself into. I think I was very idealistic and very naive about what I thought the NHS would be, coming from a different healthcare system, and really wanted to work in the NHS, but I don't think I quite understood what I was getting myself into.
No. Oh, I didn't know that about you. Which healthcare system have you come from?
Well, so it wasn't a healthcare system that I worked in, but I'm sure as the accent gives away, I grew up in the States.
Yes.
And so I actually was all set to go to medical school in the States. I was going to go to New York, and I was working in the capacity of a healthcare assistant in the US healthcare system and just wasn't loving it. And my dad's English, so I had a British passport through him, and my grandfather was actually an NHS doctor. So I had this little newspaper article from 1948, because that was when he qualified as a doctor. And he was sort of, the headline was Tomorrow's Doctor, the NHS Doctor. And it was all about, you know, British healthcare system and how this new generation of doctors going into it. So I had that idea in my head. And I never met my grandfather. He died in the 70s. But I'd lived in England when I was younger, and I just thought, you know, if I'm going to be a doctor and work in a healthcare system, what better healthcare system in the world than the NHS? So that's what my mindset when I sort of came over here to work and do my initial training as a junior doctor.
Oh, I love that.
Oh, thank you. But so I wanted to say that I know we've connected on Instagram recently enough, but I've actually known who you are for quite a long time. So I vividly remember, I vividly remember as a final med student, and even as an F1 doctor, sort of knowing of you, knowing of your work with the DA UK and all of that. So I just sort of wanted to take it back to there. So could you tell me a little bit about what happened to make you found the Doctors Association UK, and sort of your story around that? Because I actually think it's such an amazing story.
Yeah, I think that's another story that starts with, I think I was a little bit nuts. But yeah, so I was off on maternity leave at the time. I don't know if you know this, but yeah, my maternity leave didn't exactly go as planned. I think it would be fair to say for those that know me. And then yeah, I came home, and it was just after I'd been an A&E registrar for the first year, and I'd really struggled. Like, it was a really rubbish year. Like, it was the first year that the winter crisis had really hit, and it was just a disaster working in A&E. And to be honest, I got really burnt out, and I, you know, wasn't loving life. And I went off on maternity leave, and that wasn't quite the break. I was like, oh, it's going to be amazing. I'm going to like get a master's degree, and I'm going to like learn how to like taste wine properly. And yeah, no, like that, no. It was not like that at all. It was more about surviving and trying to shower like once a week. But yeah, and then while I was off, the Hadiza Balgaba thing happened. So she was the same grade as me. She was a registrar. She was, you know, a new mom of a really tiny little one. And, you know, she got convicted of gross negligence manslaughter for making a mistake that I would have made on a bad day. Like, any of us would have made on a bad day, you know, working in conditions that were just completely and utterly unsafe. And she got absolutely thrown under the bus. And I don't know, I was really tired and I was really sleep deprived. And I remember, because it was like 2 or 3 in the morning, and I just wrote this really angry letter to Charlie Massey at the GMC, being like, this is bull, like, this cannot happen. And yeah, I must have like been delirious, because I posted it, and then it got like 5,000 signatures. So it was then I realised, okay, well, there's a lot of feeling behind this, and I would have loved the BMA, or, you know, other unions are available, like any organisation to run with it. And no one did. She was kind of like left on her own, except for a few amazing individuals that, you know, had her back. And it was then I thought, well, like, actually, there's a need for something, and I'm sitting here on my maternity leave, and I'd love something else to do. I'd love to try and help, you know, and give back to the NHS. So yeah, the association was born.
And the DA UK does such amazing work. And I have to say that the Dr. Bawa-Garba case, I think it resonated with so many of us because, as you said, any one of us could have been her. It was a systems failure. I mean, I'm sure most people who are watching are probably familiar with the case, but I think that's where the frustration often comes from, is we feel like we're being set up to fail. You're put in a situation that's so impossible to navigate safely. It feels inevitable that something is going to happen at some point, you know, to someone, and then they'll get thrown under the bus. So that frustration is so real, and you and the DA UK giving a voice to that and actually doing something about it was incredible, because actually that is, as you identified, that's something that we were really, really lacking, is we didn't have that voice and we didn't have anyone advocating for us. So from the DA UK, I think you've sort of stepped away from it now. So they're still carrying on all the good work that you started, and you're working a bit with NHS Million.
Yeah, they're great. Like the DA UK guys are brilliant. You know, I have stepped away, but I didn't know how I'd feel like kind of handing over like my baby in a way, but you know, the team, the committee that are left behind, they've got all the same passion, and they're maybe not quite as nuts, and they don't work all through the night on DA UK, which is exactly what they should be doing, as in don't work all the way through the night. But yeah, they're brilliant. So it's been great to watch them, you know, kind of take it and run. But yeah, the NHS Million's kind of a relatively recent thing. There's just 3 of us. There's Katie, who's a paediatric junior doctor, and then Joe, who's a comms director in the NHS. He's wicked. And yeah, it's just the 3 of us trying to basically celebrate all the good things about the NHS, as well as using kind of the following that NHS Million has. And I can't take any credit for that. Like they did that before I joined, to, you know, highlight some of the problems, really. So yeah, it's been a really, really lovely, supportive little group, and yeah, proud to be part of it.
And one of the other things I wanted to ask you about is, I think, you know, as part of all the advocacy that you do, you've sort of found yourself very much in the public eye a lot, or, you know, you've been on Good Morning Britain, and I'm sure you've had to deal with, you know, maybe some pushback or trolls, especially in this post-COVID world of a lot of misinformation. So how have you found that? Was it something when you started DA UK that you were expecting for all of this to happen? And how has it been dealing with it all?
No. God. Yeah, no. What? Like, yeah, I don't know. I'm not a media doctor at all. Like, even I don't know who's watching, but I'm just going to admit it. Like, I even got really nervous, like, coming onto your live tonight. Like, I don't know. I get quite anxious before I go on stuff. And
I do too.
Oh, okay. It's not just me, but yeah, it's not my, like, it's not our natural home as doctors, is it? Like, this is
no, it's not
what we do. But yeah, I remember the first time I got asked to go on this morning, and I put a like post up in like the physicians mums group being like, please, will another doctor mum do this? Like, I don't know anyone, like somebody do it. And they were like, you do it, you idiot. So I did, and it was like 6 in the morning, so I couldn't even like have a gin beforehand, but I just went for it. And then after that it kind of became easier, and it was kind of the job at DA UK, you know, like we just didn't have, like, doctors didn't have a voice in the media, and actually we're pretty vocal as a staff group in the NHS. But I think the other healthcare professionals, you know, sadly, I think they have even less of a voice than we do as doctors. But you know, that was part of the job, really, to try and get that over, you know, our messages across in the media and kind of speak up for us. And it's not something that I ever really wanted to do, but I needed to do it. And you know, we got stuff done. Like, that's the only way we could get politics. Sorry, you got me on my DA UK soapbox, but it's the only way we could get politicians to listen to us, which is such a shame. But you know, that is what it is. So no, I wasn't prepared for it. I still don't really like it. I still do it occasionally. Like I really love the Good Morning Britain guys. Like Emma is great. Like the whole team are great. They're really supportive. So if there's an issue that I think I can lend my voice to that's helpful, I'll do it. But yeah, I'm very happy to just become slightly more anonymous.
Step back a little from it.
Yeah.
I totally understand that. I mean, I've never done anything on, you know, on that scale, but I feel like I also get nervous just before a live or something like this. So I can't imagine, you know, you're actually really brave. It's amazing for you to go out and do that, because there is always a little bit of pushback, isn't there, when doctors speak out, and there, especially recently, there's been quite a lot of negative media attention around doctors, particularly GPs. So putting yourself forward as an actual face or a name that people can, you know, sadly sometimes target abuse to is actually really, really difficult. So really admire that you've done that in the past and that you continue to do that. I think it's amazing.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, people are really mean. Like, what what's wrong with people? I wasn't prepared for it. You know, people think that it's fair game to comment on your appearance, like on your weight, what you're wearing, like, and it was quite sad actually. I think a lot of the female doctors that do speak up or you know, speak in the media, they get all of these comments that I don't think the men get, or certainly not as many as we get. And it's such a shame that that's still happening, because it doesn't matter what gender I am or what clothes size I am. Like, you should be listening to what I'm saying and my expertise, not worrying about my weight, for God's sake.
Absolutely. But you know what? Just ignore the trolls. Not worth our time.
No, but that's why I love Instagram and like connecting with like people like you. It's just, I don't know, it's a lot more supportive here, and everyone seems a lot more lovely. Like Twitter's, yeah, I think Twitter's been a bit of a bin fire recently for doctors. So yeah, it's much nicer over here on Instagram.
Yeah, to be honest, Twitter, I don't really use Twitter much. Sometimes I lurk a little bit and it does seem quite vicious. But again, I think one of the things that we were bonding over is that it took me by surprise, and I think took you by surprise as well, that Instagram has actually been generally quite a positive experience for both of us. And it's been an amazing way for me to connect with other female clinicians that actually I never probably would have connected with otherwise. So like I said, I've known who you are for a really, really long time. I never imagined that I would, you know, get to be messaging you or have this opportunity to speak to you like this. So from that, Instagram's been really, really positive.
Oh, you're so sweet. Like, you're making me, I'm actually going really quite red. You need to stop.
Okay, I'll stop.
You're so sweet.
So let's take it back to the NHS and your NHS work. So you've got what I think is a really cool career. So you do several different things. So you work in the ITU and you also work on the air ambulance as well. So let's start with air ambulance, because I'm really curious about that. How did that come about? What does the training involve if you want to get involved in something like that?
Yeah, I mean, I'll talk about helicopters all day long. But yeah, it's really tricky. It's quite competitive to get in the sense that there are only a few spots every year. So I think there were 19 spots across the country for doctors this year to do formal pre-hospital emergency medicine training, although other doctors do HEMS out of training. So basically it was about 10 years of trying to get stuff on my CV from med school up until when I applied, doing lots of stuff for free, you know, working, volunteering at events, you know, trying to get as much experience as I could on my CV before I applied. And I came out of the interview and I rang my husband and I was like, oh my God, that was the worst thing ever. Like, I think I probably got like a 0, and I am not getting that job. And yeah, and then I did. So it just goes to show, like, you know, we need to back ourselves as women. And I think there were only 3 women they interviewed that year for all of those spots. There were so few of us. and actually the two women got both of the top jobs. So, you know, don't, if you're watching this and you're a female and you think, oh, HEMS is really macho, or like it's not for women, or not for women with families, like don't listen to that. Like that is absolutely not true. You can definitely still do HEMS. Like there are lots of women in, you know, in this job who do have families. Like my mentor had twins. She was amazing, and she was bossing it as a HEMS doctor, and she's one of the reasons that I applied. So it's very possible. Like I love it. It's the part of the job that I love the most. I've actually just left my current service, very sadly, after a couple of years, which I really enjoyed. But yeah, it's great, and it's just it's really nice to be able to do critical care and still kind of be at the sharp end of medicine, but be able to work outside of a hospital in a different system, a different environment. And yeah, I love it. I really love it.
So you knew pretty much from medical school that it was something you wanted to pursue?
Yeah, and I think you kind of have to. I mean, people do come into it late, but unfortunately, there are so few spots at the moment that really you've got to be turning out stuff on your CV, which is a shame because we're not necessarily recruiting the best people maybe, and it's more people that have known they've wanted to do it for a long time. But you know, things are changing. We're recruiting, you know, a whole load of different people that think in a different way. Like the HEM stereotype is no more, but yeah, I'm one of those really annoying people that wanted to do HEM since I was in the womb.
So if we have any medical students watching, what sorts of experiences should they be seeking out if they want to, you know, be competitive for HEMS?
Hi, med students, if you're watching. Firstly, I hope you're all okay. Like, it's been really rubbish for you guys, like at uni, and I'm really sorry. I really feel for you when you come in on your clinical placement. So, you know, if you're qualifying as a doctor in the middle of the pandemic, that makes you pretty badass. So I'll just say that. But yeah, if you want to do FEM, it's really difficult getting experience. This is kind of the catch-22 of HEMS. But there are things that you can do. So you can ring or write to your local ambulance service, go out on some ride-alongs with ambulances, or go out with the critical care paramedics on the car. You can write to HEMS services and see if you can come for a ride-along as well. Several services offer that. But I think the most important thing is coming along to the clinical governance days, which sound really boring, but they're not, because you get to hear about all the cases and how we manage, you know, the difficult cases, look at the scene photos and, you know, sort of think through the cases for yourself. And you also get to meet all of the team and sort of network. So those are definitely the things that I'd be doing at your level. And if there is anyone that's watching and you are interested in HEMS, just, yeah, drop me a DM and we can chat.
Amazing. And can you tell us I know there's probably not a typical HEMS shift, but what, if one were to ride along with you, what would you maybe expect?
Lots of coffee. As a start. It's really varied. So there'll be some days where, so you'll turn up at a shift, and like the early shift, I get up at 3:45, like it's totally nuts. And I'm on base for like 5:30. Like I would not do that for any other job, but I would do that for HEMS. So they're really early starts. So as I said, lots of coffee, and then we basically get handover, check the aircraft, we'll check the car as well in case we need to go out in the car because of bad weather. And then we'll have a brief with the pilots, you know, find out where we can fly, where we can't fly, whether there's any problems with weather. And then we basically just sit and we wait and we wait and we wait. And then you've kind of got to go from 0 to 100. So there's like a little tone that comes up on our radio just before we'll get a job, and it goes beep, beep, and everyone's like, oh. And then the job comes through and you have to go and answer the phone. And then you've got 5 minutes to get out in the aircraft from the time of call to the time of lift. So it's quite quick. And then, yeah, well, you then go to the job. In the service that I was just in, the vast majority of what we went to was trauma. We didn't go to many medical things, occasionally some of the more complex cardiac arrests, but mainly trauma, which was most commonly road traffic collisions, sadly. And, you know, they're the most critically injured and unwell patients across the 3 counties that we work in. And yeah, so we do all kinds of things, from delivering pre-hospital emergency anaesthetics by the road to having to do chest surgery, and then we scoop and run people as quickly as we can to a major trauma centre with proper grown-ups.
Sounds like a very exciting job.
It's great. And, you know, I think one of the things that I really like about it is that actually you kind of had the time between jobs. So you'll come back and you'll debrief everything and talk it through and have a hot debrief, you know, and it's always about what can we do better, or what are the marginal gains, okay, what are the things that works and what are the things that maybe we can change for next time. So there's a constant focus on, you know, performance and delivering the best care that we possibly can, that just sadly just isn't there in the NHS at the moment. But, you know, hopefully it's going that way.
I can imagine that as a team, you're actually quite bonded together. Are you always working pretty much with the same team, the same pilot?
No, actually, we changed quite a lot. Yeah. So in the service that I was just working with, you kind of bounce around. There were 2 teams, but yeah, you're working with different people quite a lot. But then we have this system, like we have a really strict system about how we approach patients, so that we've always got that to fall back on. And the idea is you could put the worst doctor with the worst paramedic on the worst day, and they would still be able to deliver, you know, a really high quality trauma system. But yeah, my colleagues are great. Like, yeah, everyone's it's quite a close-knit family in HEMS.
I can imagine. And then the other piece of what you do as an NHS doctor is you're an ICU registrar. How has that been this past year? Quite difficult, I imagine.
Yeah. It's not been great. No.
I mean, how is the time split between IT or ICU and HEMS?
So I did HEMS full time for a year, and then I basically just worked ad hoc, so a few shifts every month, kind of around my job. And at the moment I'm just doing ICU until I become a consultant, and then hopefully doing some more HEMS after that. So at the moment I'm pretty much full. I do like a few shifts here and there, but yeah, I'm mainly full-time ICU at the moment, which is great. Like, I'm in a really good team, and honestly it's the most supportive place I've ever worked, like by a long shot. And I don't know what my mental health would be like if they weren't as amazing as they are, because yeah, it's been quite tough.
Yeah. Did you always know, similar to HEMS, that ICU was the path that you wanted to go down?
No, I started life like you as the A&E doctor. No, I thought I was really hardcore A&E, like, you know, when I was a student and an SHO, like I loved it, and it was really busy and it was interesting, and you always had the best stories, and you know, like the banter was great, the teams were great, the nurses gave as good as they got. Like, it was, you know, I loved my team. Like, I worked at Frimley, and you know,
I that was my first A&E job, was Frimley.
No way.
Frimley. Yeah.
Did you enjoy it?
Fell in love with A&E doing it at Frimley. It's such a great experience. Anyway, sorry to interrupt.
No, it's good. I mean, Frimley's a great place to train, like, yeah, for sure. Like, and the team there are brilliant. Like, it's a really good A&E, but you know, it's busy. It's really busy, and I definitely, like, I loved A&E as a med student and loved A&E as an SHO. Like, I loved it at Frimley, and then I found it really difficult when I became a reg. It just was a slightly different job to what I thought it was going to be, and you know, we were really short staffed at the time, and you know, I found it hard when we had like 8-hour waits, and the ambulances were like round the corner, and you were the only reg, and I just thought, like, I'm gonna miss something, and I'm not giving the care that, you know, I want to give. This isn't really what I signed up for, and I was just knackered. I was just exhausted. Like, the rota was insane. Although I'm now working like a similar COVID rota in ICU, but like, whatever. But yeah, and so I started dual training with ICU, and I ended up giving up my A&E number and saying, you know, I'm not going to come back. And I still don't know if it was the right decision. Like, there are things I really miss about A&E, and it's mainly the team. But then, you know, I walk through our department at the moment, and it's just mental. Like, there are so many patients, and you know, every corridor is full, and I really feel for them. So anyone that's like still in A&E, like you, and anyone that's watching, like, my hat off to you, because like, you are amazing kinds of people.
I mean, my hat off to you for being in ICU throughout this whole pandemic. But yeah, what you were saying about not providing the care that you want to be able to provide in A&E, I think that really resonates with me at the moment, because like you said, it's so busy. The wait times are unbelievable. You know, patients are sort of packed on top of each other, and it's frustrating. It's difficult because you just feel like you're not giving patients what they deserve, but you can't. Like you physically can't. There's no resources. There's nothing that like you as a single doctor or nurse or whatever working in an A&E department right now can do to make things better, other than going in and working your hardest. But it is exhausting, and going into that shift after shift after shift, it definitely just sort of wears you down a bit. But so in terms of what made you decide to go more towards ICU? I mean, were there any bits and pieces of ICU that you were really excited about that was different from A&E when you made that move over?
Well, I thought I was coming to ICU for a slightly easier life. Lol, says the universe. Yeah, no, I don't. Actually, Frimley, again, was the reason that I did ICU, and I hadn't considered it. Like, it just hadn't even crossed my mind. And I did my first SHO job doing ACCS at Frimley, and I was like, oh, like, I actually really like this, but every single consultant there, I mean, I love them, they're all brilliant, but they're all male except for one, and that one was the reason that I did ICU. Like, she's incredible. Like, she's so fierce. She's so fierce. I was like a little bit scared of her at first, but yeah, she's like, yeah, just incredible clinician, so compassionate, so incredibly skilled, and a mother. And I don't know, I just for the first time was like, like maybe I could see myself doing this specialty. So yeah, I applied, I got both numbers, so I'll see how they both go. And then the more time I spent in ICU, I think the more I realised that actually it was a better fit. Like, I really enjoy, you know, being able to be there for families and having like the time to spend with them that you just don't have in A&E. You know, I like the fact that, you know, the sickest patient in the hospital, like, I will always know about it. I'll always be involved and be able to use my skills, you know, to help that person. Whereas I found in A&E, like, I really wanted to be doing that, and I really wanted to take the time, you know, in resus with the really sick patients and like take time with their families. Whereas, you know, there were like 100 patients in a waiting room that needed to be seen, you know, with their sore throats and whatever. And like, that just wasn't, I just found that really difficult. Like, I just wanted to be able to give that time to the person that I felt most needed it, which you can't do in A&E because otherwise the flow just stops. So yeah, and I think like our experience of having like our little one in ICU as well totally changed my perspective as well. And you know, I think if I can be there for a family the way that, you know, the NHS was for me, then yeah, I'm gonna do it.
And I've heard you tell that story before about Joshua being in ICU, and are you happy to sort of talk about it again? Because I think as doctors, being on the other side of it and being a patient or a family member of a patient, it can actually be quite a bewildering thing, because that's not how we have experienced medicine. So what was it like for you?
What was it like? I've kind of, yeah, it's all a bit of a blur now. I think I found it really difficult being on the other side. You know, I think obviously, you know, being an emergency doctor, being an intensive care doctor, I understood quite a lot about pediatric intensive care, but it's still a different ball game. And I think a little bit of knowledge sometimes is like the worst thing. Yeah. And I remember like on night one that Joshua was in ICU, and I was, you know, I was like, can I look at his blood results? Can I see the gas results? Like, you know, and then I would be looking at these results, like obviously like not knowing like really what they meant in the context of a tiny, you know, 2-pound baby. Being like, can you filter like a prem baby? Like, can you put them on ECMO? And the nurses were just like, sit down. Like, yeah, and they were great. Like, they were so understanding and so patient with me, and I think like I found it easier to take things in medically, so they were so happy to take the time and, you know, explain everything, you know, to me. They knew that I would look at the ventilator and I knew what every number meant on the ventilator, so you know, I knew when things were getting worse with him. And they were really, they were just incredible. And like, it was the first time that, I mean, you know, nurses are very special human beings, but it was the first time I think that I realized just how special they were, because they were the people that, you know, really looked after us. You know, I was at Joshua's bedside for like 16 hours a day, and they would like feed me, like shoehorn me out of the unit at night. And yeah, they were my rock, and, you know, they became, you know, my friends, and I would not have got through that, you know, without them. So yeah, it was tough, 3 months in ICU, but, you know, we have a beautiful 4-year-old little boy that we wouldn't have had if, you know, if it wasn't for the NHS and it wasn't for them. So yeah, it's a hard part of my, oh God, made me teary. Right, snap myself out of it. What was I going to say? Like, it's a you know, it's a hard thing to talk about, but, you know, it's part of my story, and it's a big part of, you know, what shaped my family and my career. So
absolutely.
yeah.
And I wanted to talk to you a little bit about motherhood and medicine, because I think especially when you're in sort of male dominated specialties, it's so important to have female role models like yourself and like the ICU consultant that you saw to look up to, and to see like it can, you know, it can be done. And actually there's the reality there, right? It's a mixture. So there's a little give and take, and it's not necessarily easy, but it is possible. And I actually think it's, you know, really important to talk about being a mother as well as a doctor. I personally have a couple surgeons that I absolutely adore and really look up to. And when I hear them lecture at conferences, they always introduce themselves as mothers first, which I adore. So I just wanted to talk to you about, you know, how it's been balancing, you know, you've got this gorgeous young family. I think Joshua, you said, is 4 now. And obviously you've got a very intense, high stress, very demanding job. So balancing those two things and how it's been for you.
Yeah, I mean, it's not, I don't think being a doctor mum is ever easy, is it? It's just like spinning plates all the time, like keeping all the balls in the air. Like, yeah, you know, it's I don't even know what to say. I guess my gin consumption's gone up quite a lot. But, you know, I don't think training in the UK is built for women and women having families at all. It just doesn't seem to take that into consideration. Like, yes, you can go less than full time, but, you know, it's really not great. Like, the systems aren't great. You know, you know, triple your length of training, which is just ridiculous. Like, yeah. And I just don't think our training system or the NHS, you know, really is supportive of women who are also mothers as well as healthcare workers. So I definitely think we need to be better. But as you said, I think the more people that do it, and the more it's normalized, and the more that you can be a doctor and be a mum and still be a good doctor and be both a full-time doctor and a full-time mum, I think, you know, those attitudes are starting to change.
Yeah. And I think it's going to come from, you know, us, and also from, you know, the medical students that are graduating now and the junior doctors that are coming up through the ranks now. Like, the old school consultants, you know, not necessarily going to change them, that side of things. But we're the ones that are potentially going to be the change. So yeah, I love seeing women, like I said, going into these competitive male dominated specialties, and then also having their gorgeous families. It's brilliant.
You know, I don't think the mummy guilt will ever go away though. Yeah. You know, like you know, like, you worry like that you're not feeding your kid the right things, so you spend ages in the kitchen like trying to like cook them something really nice, and then you feel really guilty because you've sat in front of the TV for an hour while you tried to cook like something really nice. Like, you know, that's never going to go away.
No, but you know what, I think whatever you do for your career, whatever it is that's going on in your life, you're probably still going to have that mommy guilt no matter what. That's probably just part and parcel of it. I don't have any kids myself yet, but I can imagine that it, you know, regardless of whatever else is going on in my life, that's always going to take priority and precedence. It's always going to be something that you stress over and you worry about.
Yeah, you wait. Like I filmed a reel. I filmed a reel the other day about like interviews and consultant interviews. Now I'm at the end because like all of my, like a lot of my colleagues who haven't got children, like, you know, they're wicked, they're amazing, they're doing so much stuff, and you know, they're getting papers and they're presenting at conferences, and you know, I'm watching these people and I'm like, oh god, like I'd love to be doing that, but actually like my priorities have changed. Like, you know, I'm a mum now, and like, you know, look at this human. I've created this life. Like, you know, do I not get any points for that? That's a massive extracurricular activity. I think I should get a big tick in the box.
I completely agree. Completely agree. The other thing I wanted to ask you about, because I'm conscious that we're already 40 minutes in, and I don't want to keep you for more than an hour. And I still have all these things I want to ask you about. So I watched the TED Talk that you did called The Empathy Switch, and I really, really loved it. And I think you're really articulate and eloquent about sort of moral injury and compassion fatigue. And I do think they're really important things to discuss as clinicians, or, you know, NHS workers in general, because it affects all of us, doctors, nurses, in terms of, you know, especially in the context of this past year. So I was wondering if you could just explain to anyone who's not sort of familiar with those terms what, you know, moral injury and compassion fatigue sort of mean. And I obviously won't make you give your whole TED Talk here, but just to sort of just, you know, a little bit of what you discussed there, because I just thought it was really, really powerful. And I'd love for anyone watching to hear what you have to say on it now.
Yeah, sure. So the TED Talk was about empathy and how our empathy changes as doctors. And I got interested in this as a med student. So I went over to the US to do my elective, funnily enough. I went over to Johns Hopkins to work under an incredible female mentor. Like, she was amazing. And we were looking at empathy, and my research topic was empathy. And I was interested because, and it's kind of like what we've been talking about in this chat, like I loved A&E, I loved HEMS. I really thought that, you know, I would love to go into those specialties, but I just felt like the wrong kind of personality, and I wasn't maybe as alpha. Like, you know, I felt things, like I took things home, like I found it quite difficult, you know, to switch off. And it just seemed like other people around me, you know, were able to like flick that switch or had that innate ability. And I didn't know whether it was something that, you know, was it a brave face, or was it like a skill, like had they learned it, or, you know, is this something that I should have already if I want to be in those specialties? So that's what kind of sparked it. And then the more we researched it, and the more I read, like the more like shocked I got, because, you know, we all are really empathic as healthcare workers. We are, like, we know that in evidence. Like, when you look at people's empathy when they enter medical school, like it's really high compared to the population, and then it just goes like boop, 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 boop. And that usually happens in the first like 1 or 2, you know, years after graduation. And it's not just doctors, it's, you know, it's nurses, it's all healthcare workers. So yeah, I got really interested, and I was like, why is this happening? And basically it's not how you are, and it's not like a skill. It's basically your decline in empathy happens because we beat it out of you. Like, that's the answer. And the evidence shows this. You know, if we put you on really rubbish rotas, if we knacker you out, if we sleep deprive you, if we work you so hard at the weekends and in the night, so you're sleeping during the day when everyone else is around, so you're completely isolated. You know, we move junior doctors hospitals like every 6 to 12 months. Like, you know, junior doctors are doing one of the hardest jobs. I mean, I'm biased, but I think one of the hardest jobs out there. And yet we move them all the time, like away from their social support. Like, you know, they can never settle, they can never feel part of the family. And it's those things, when you look at those things, in combination with the blame culture and the medical hierarchy, all of those things, when you put them together, each one of them is just a knock to your empathy. And over time, that cumulative effect is the decline in empathy effect, or the empathy cliff, as we call it. So yeah, I was interested about whether there's anything that we can do to like flip it around, whether we can like help regain people's empathy, and like nothing worked. I think I was a bit naive. Like we tried everything. We tried like blogging, we tried like empathy interventions, we made people like listen to like voices like as if they were schizophrenic and having auditory hallucinations to try and improve their empathy of, you know, psychiatric patients suffering with that mental health system and, you know, symptom, and it didn't work, because what works is looking after people, and you know, you can't feel empathic towards other people if no one is being empathic towards you. And that's it. Like that's basically that's my whole TED talk. Thanks for coming.
But I think, you know, it's not surprising that, as you said, that we lose empathy because of the conditions that we work under. And then when you said you know, that we couldn't really find anything that worked to switch it around, I mean, the most obvious thing, which isn't going to happen anytime soon, is give us better working conditions, and like you said, look after your junior doctors, because we're losing them, and nurses, all healthcare professionals. The NHS is hemorrhaging them. And like, I say this as someone who actually, the focus of my career now is more private medicine, it's medical aesthetics, and I love it, and I'm really happy I'm doing that. And in a way, I've said this before, actually having that other piece to my career and life that's really positive is the only thing that has enabled me to continue working in the NHS. Because with the way that I was feeling, and probably still am feeling to some extent, if I only had the NHS in my professional life, I just think I would completely burn out. So like for me, you know, the portfolio career side of things has been what has allowed me to continue working for the NHS. But then it's difficult because, you know, that doesn't work for everyone. Doing things that way has meant that I am not in training at the moment, and I'm perfectly fine with that. But, you know, if you're on a training scheme that you've worked really hard for, giving up a training number is a huge deal, or even moving, you know, making a decision that you're going to go less than full time, that's going to take you years and years longer than you expected to complete your training. That's not an easy decision to make either. So I just think it's so difficult trying to find a solution. And I know it's not going to be one size fits all as well, but I was just wondering, you know, do you have any advice to other junior doctors who are kind of struggling with staying in the NHS? Is there anything, you know, you would say to them to help? I know it's probably not a fair question, because if someone asked me this, I would say I really don't know. But anything that, you know, has helped you, because I know you've worked in as stressful of a condition as you can work in, being an ICU doctor during COVID.
I think you've already said it in what you've just said, and I'm, you know, it's you're clearly very good at what you do, and I can see that from your Instagram, and you know, you clearly love it, and I'm really happy that, you know, you've found your own path, and that's brilliant. But you know, I'm kind of sad that we've pushed you to that point where, you know, maybe that you're not full-time in the NHS, and you know, would you have made another decision if we'd looked after you properly? And you know, I think that's the same with most people at the moment. So you know, I think probably what you've said is right, that if you are struggling, the key is unfortunately having some time out. And it's really hard, like as someone that's, you know, done 3 training programs, like it is so difficult, as you said, like coming off that training treadmill. And I feel like every year I've been like, right, this is the year, like I'm done, I'm coming out of training, like that is the last straw. And every year I've kind of stayed in, here I am like 10 years later. But you know, I think looking back over things, what I would have done differently, I think, which would have helped me, is I would have had more time out, like for sure. Even though it's taken me 10 years, like I think you do need to take breaks, and regular breaks. And then having another string to your bow as well, like when you're working in A&E in particular, or in ICU, you know, people always say, what's your plan B? You know, unfortunately, you can't do that all the time because you will just burn out. So, you know, you do need to find something else that works for you, that is a release, that gives you some of your joy back, and that probably makes you a better NHS doctor because you filled up your capacity cup and you're like able to give, you know, back to your patients in a way that, you know, perhaps you couldn't if you were completely burnt out and up against the wall in the NHS. So, you know, that's different for everyone. Like, you've built an incredible career around what you do. Like, I'm nuts, and I've like gone down the advocacy route, which pays me like nothing. And, yeah, I volunteer my time. But you know, like, one of the things that I love, like, I think Hems is the love, but that doesn't count because that's also really stressful. Like, actually, I really enjoy spending time on social media, and I used to feel really guilty about it, and not everyone likes it. And a lot of my colleagues are like, what are you doing? You're like on Twitter or Instagram all the time. Like, oh no. But actually, you know, one of the things that I've realized this year in particular with the pandemic as well, do you know what? Like, that's a stress reliever for me. Like, actually, I really enjoy that. Like, I enjoy the advocacy work. I enjoy giving back, and I enjoy spending time on social media, and that refills my cup. That gives me back energy so that I'm a better doctor when I go into that really stressful environment. So I don't feel guilty. If it makes me happy scrolling through Instagram, then that's fine. I've learned to accept that.
Absolutely. And it's not the only thing you do. The other thing that you do as a doctor is you're a rugby doctor as well, because we were also bonding about that. So I wanted to ask you, how long have you been involved in that? How did that come about? How did you get started?
Yeah, I forgot about that. God, I really am doing too many things. Actually, kind of recent, but kind of not. And this is, again, we were talking about ways into HEMS and pre-hospital care. This is definitely something that I would recommend to people, you know, looking at getting more experience. But I started working in sports medicine, like, as an SHO, so like as a ST1, which probably was a bit too junior, but at the time, like, that's what people did at SHO level. And I've worked for lots of different companies, but there's one that I've stayed with, and that's Sports Medics, which is run by Natasha Beach, and they are recruiting at the moment. So if you are interested, just let me know, because they're wicked, and it's a really like tight-knit like group of like people from all different kinds of backgrounds. And yeah, I've basically been working in several different sports over the years, and then in the last, you know, few months, really come over from football, where I've been for the last few years, into rugby, which is much better because A, I get to watch rugby, and B, I've got loads of brownie points in the bank with my husband, who's a massive rugby fan. So yeah, I'm winning at life.
I was saying with my fiance, he's actually really, really jealous because the company I've been working for, they do a lot of the Six Nations games, which are completely sold out now. So I'll get paid to go see them. And he's very, very cross that he's going to have to watch them on TV because he can't get into the games at all.
Nice. Yeah, I got some of my England rugby kit the other day. My husband came in wearing my jacket, my jacket yesterday. Like, obviously he's got, you know, bigger guns than me, and they were like almost like, they were so tight on his arms, but he just wanted to wear it. He just stole it.
Just steals all your goodies. And so for the sports, are you more the crowd side or the team side?
No, so I did crowd doctoring for many years, which is how I think most people start if you're interested in doing pitch side. Like, that's quite a natural progression. But yeah, I don't do any. I mainly just do pitch now. And on the sports side rather than, I occasionally do crowd stuff, but yeah, I enjoy the sports because you get to sit on the pitch and watch the rugby.
Which is perfect. And is it just rugby that you're going to be doing now? So you've completely moved away from doing the football?
Yeah, I don't think I'll go back to football. I didn't enjoy football. It was really boring. They just pass the ball between them. It's like snooze fest. Probably shouldn't be admitting this on a live video, but yeah, I'm not. I'm very happy to move into rugby. But, you know, I was speaking to one of the rugby colleagues, you know, about a career past this season. And I think competitive sports very similar to hens, you know, things change all of the time. Like, you know, posts come and go. It's not as secure as the NHS, like as you know, as you will know, it's almost being like self-employed and it's easy come, easy go. So yeah, I'm really enjoying the rugby for now, and I hope I can stay in the rugby. But yeah, might end up doing something else next year. We'll see.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for giving me an hour of your time. I'm so glad that we got to do this. What are you doing with the rest of your night? Are you just going to go relax now?
I'm going to have a big gin and tonic. And I probably got to let my husband have the lounge back so he can get back on the PlayStation. Like, he looked very, very upset when I kicked him out. So yeah.
I'll probably go. We can have the lounge back now. We're done with our chat. I hope that I get to talk to you again soon. I hope I get to meet you in person one day. I'm sure we'll make it happen. And let's do some more reels together.
Oh, yes, got lots of real ideas. Well, it's so nice to meet you and like actually see your face and yeah, talk to you. It's been really lovely.
Good. And thank you again so much for doing this. I absolutely loved it.
No worries.
All right. Okay. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.